Shirley MacLaine has never been one to hold her tongue, but when it came to Clint Eastwood, she stayed silent. For over 5 decades, she never spoke about what really happened during the filming of Two Mules for Sister Sara. No interviews, no gossip, just silence. Now, at 92, she is finally ready to talk, and what she reveals changes the way people see Clint Eastwood. This wasn't a minor disagreement. According to Shirley, the way she was treated on set was cold, calculated, and personal, haunting her for years. It all began the moment she arrived on set. The cameras hadn't even started rolling when she sensed something was off. She had worked with intense co-stars before. Strong personalities were nothing new in Hollywood, but this was different. From the moment she arrived, there was an undefinable tension. Clint Eastwood, tall and stoic, already famous for his icy, silent gunslinger roles, barely looked her way. No handshake, no greeting, not even a nod. She thought maybe he was focused or getting into character, but days passed and nothing changed. He remained distant, speaking only what the script required. For Shirley, sharp-witty and endlessly curious, it felt like acting opposite a statue. They shared nearly every scene, yet off-camera, he treated her as if she didn't exist. Shirley later admitted they never had a real conversation during the entire production. The crew noticed the silence, but said nothing. Director Don Siegel, who had worked closely with Clint before, seemed caught in the middle, protective of Eastwood but aware something wasn't working between the two stars. It wasn't just awkward, it was offensive. Shirley was no background actress. By 1969, she had been nominated for 3 Academy Awards and starred in The Apartment, Mala Douce, and Sweet Charity. She was known for her professionalism, energy, and collaborative spirit. Yet Clint shut her out completely. It wasn't just that he wouldn't talk to her. It was how deliberately he would walk past without a glance. He would finish a scene and vanish without a word. At lunch, he sat with the crew or alone, never with her. When she tried light jokes, he ignored them, and her attempts to break the ice failed. Some might have blamed method acting, but this was different. It was personal, and no one told her why. The set's atmosphere grew heavy. The humor that should have existed in a film blending Western grit with lighthearted moments never made it off screen. Shirley described the energy as stone cold, leaving her confused, angry, and humiliated. To disagree is one thing, she said later, but to act as though someone is invisible is something else entirely. What should have been a rewarding experience, starring alongside one of Hollywood's fastest rising stars, turned into something darker, lingering for years. The silence between Eastwood and Shirley was only part of it. Filming conditions pushed everything to the edge. Production took place deep in rural Mexico, far from Hollywood comforts. The landscape was breathtaking but unforgiving. Blistering heat scorched the cast and crew by day, while nights brought insects, snakes, and sudden desert chills. The terrain was rugged, the dust constant, and decent accommodations hours away. For Shirley, it was a physical and emotional test, worsened by the man beside her. She wore heavy black nun robes, unbearable in the heat, joking later that the only miracle was that she didn't faint from heat stroke. Some scenes required riding a horse through rocky trails under the blazing sun. Clint, in his typical Western gear, endured the same heat, but never acknowledged her struggle or offered a glance of concern. To anyone watching, the tension had not thawed at all. This was no short shoot. Days stretched into weeks, and every day was marked by the same frigid behavior. Clint remained distant, detached, and completely uninterested in building any rapport, making Shirley feel more like a prop than a co-star. Crew members later recalled that the mood on set was unnaturally quiet. Most film sets buzz with chatter, laughter, and last-minute script changes. But here the silence between the leads seemed to infect everyone. People whispered and glanced nervously around. Even the director tread carefully. One afternoon, while filming a particularly difficult sequence with explosives and horses, Shirley stumbled off her saddle after a take, exhausted and sweating through layers of fabric, her hands trembling slightly. A nearby crew member rushed to help her, but Clint, just a few steps away, kept walking, silent and unaffected. Shirley later described the emotional weight of that shoot as one of the most isolating experiences of her career. "I have worked in dangerous locations," she said, "but I have never felt more alone than I did on that set." At one point, she reportedly asked someone on the crew if Clint had a problem with her. The answer was chilling in its simplicity. "He just does not like you." But why? They had never worked together before. There had been no argument, no history, no rumors. She could only guess that her outspoken nature, curiosity, and constant engagement clashed with Eastwood's quiet, no-nonsense approach, but that didn't explain the deliberate coldness. Even in scenes that called for humor or warmth between their characters, Clint barely looked at her between takes, as if trying to erase her presence outside the frame. That energy seeped into every corner of the shoot. The wild Mexican landscapes, while breathtaking, became symbols of emotional distance. There was no comfort, no camaraderie, just two people on opposite sides of a silent war, one of whom had no idea why it had started. Behind the camera, someone else struggled to prevent things from boiling over: Don Siegel, who knew both stars well. Siegel was no stranger to strong personalities, having built a career working with hard-edged actors and gritty material. But nothing prepared him for the silent standoff between his two leads. He was caught in a no-win situation. On one side, Clint Eastwood, longtime friend and collaborator, who trusted and respected him. On the other, Shirley MacLaine, outspoken, creative, and unafraid to speak her mind, newer to Siegel but crucial to the film's success. From the moment they were brought together on location, it was clear something didn't click. Siegel initially tried to ignore the tension, hoping it would blow over as long as scenes were shot and the dailies looked good. But it didn't. The silence was more than awkward. It was disruptive. Timing was off, chemistry forced. And no matter how good their on-camera performances looked, Siegel could sense a hollow energy underneath. Eventually, Shirley confronted him, asking directly, "What is going on with Clint? Why will he not speak to me?" Siegel reportedly replied curtly, "He does not like women who talk too much." The words hit her like a slap. Whether intended as a joke or a defense of his friend, the effect was deeply personal. Shirley felt undermined, unsupported, and alienated. She was not just being ignored by her co-star, she was being told indirectly that her personality was the problem. Privately, some crew members said Siegel sympathized with Shirley more than he let on, admiring her work ethic. She always showed up prepared, knew her lines, and gave her best performance every time. But when it came to Clint, Siegel's loyalty was unwavering. He had built his career alongside Eastwood, and there was no doubt which side he would take if tensions escalated. Rumors circulated, never confirmed, but whispered enough to raise eyebrows. That Siegel made subtle edits to shift focus away from Lan's character, fewer close-ups, less emphasis on her emotional arcs. Some insiders believed her character's impact was softened in post-production, perhaps to please Clint or avoid further conflict. Shirley herself noticed the difference years later, mentioning how the final cut felt unlike what she remembered filming. "There was a lot more of her in the original script," she said. "But when I saw the finished product, it felt like I had been trimmed out of my own performance." Whether intentional or not, the result was clear. Shirley walked away from Two Mules for Sister Sara, feeling invisible both on and off screen. Siegel had tried to keep the peace, but his silence spoke volumes. Clint never said much during the shoot, yet the way he carried himself sent a louder message than words ever could. It became clear this was not mere professional distance, it was deliberate, calculated coldness. By the time filming wrapped, the damage was done, and what happened after would leave an even deeper scar. When the film was released in 1970, audiences had no idea of the tension behind the scenes. On screen, Eastwood and Mann shared believable chemistry. The film was a modest hit, blending gritty Western action with light humor, and critics gave it decent reviews. But for Shirley, the experience left a wound that never fully healed. During the press tour, she remained professional, smiling during interviews and complimenting the director. Yet whenever Eastwood's name came up, her answers were clipped, vague, and guarded. She never attacked him or revealed the truth yet. The tension was so noticeable that a few observant reporters commented on it. One wrote, The two stars appeared to have no relationship outside the frame. They were right and then some. After the film, Shirley and Clint never spoke again. No letters, no reunions, no follow-up projects, and most tellingly, no public mention of each other for decades. It was as if the film had never happened. Privately, Shirley confided that the experience shook her confidence, not because of anything Clint said, but because of what he refused to say. His complete lack of acknowledgement made her feel non-existent. It wasn't professional detachment. It was personal disregard. Rumors circulated among Hollywood insiders. Some claimed Shirley had tried to confront Clint at a post-production event, only for him to walk away. Others said she had requested Universal Pictures avoid scheduling her on projects involving him. Nothing was confirmed, but in the circles that mattered. It was clear something had gone very wrong between two of the industry's brightest stars, for years. Shirley avoided questions about the film. She spoke freely about the apartment, her work with Bob Fosse, or her travels. But when Two Mules for Sister Sara came up, her answers were short and her gaze drifted. It was the one film in her career that carried quiet bitterness. As for Clint, he never addressed it. In interviews, retrospectives, and biographies, the film was mentioned only briefly, if at all. He spoke of the location, the stunts, or Sigel's direction, but not a word about his co-star. In his memoir, Shirley's name does not appear once. That silence spoke louder than any insult. Fans initially noticed nothing, but over time. Film historians began to wonder how two stars of such magnitude could share so much screen time and leave behind no shared history, no anecdotes. No funny memories, no praise. It remained a mystery until Shirley, decades later, decided to break her silence. Her decision wasn't about revenge or attention, it was about truth, reclaiming an experience buried beneath years of one-sided narrative. When she finally spoke, she didn't hold back. In a quiet interview, far from the Hollywood spotlight, Shirley was asked about her least favorite film experience. After a pause, she named it Two Mules for Sister Sara. When asked why, she opened the floodgates. Her voice was calm, but her words carried years of reflection, frustration, and lingering hurt. "I was treated like I did not exist," she said. "That kind of energy, it stays with you, especially when you are trying to do your job and give something to the screen." She didn't even need to name Clint Eastwood. It was unmistakable who Shirley meant. And when she finally named him, she did so without hesitation. "He was cold," she said, so cold it felt intentional. "I have worked with difficult men before, eccentric ones, arrogant ones, but Clint, he was something else. He did not yell. He did not argue. He just acted like I was not even there." She went on to describe how professionally humiliating the shoot had been. Disagreements happen. Personalities clash. But to be actively ignored? Treated as if she didn't exist? That takes a kind of cruelty I was not prepared for, she said. What struck viewers most wasn't just her words, it was the decade she had carried them silently. Shirley MacLaine, bold and non-incensed, had faced studio executives, male co-stars, and political critics without flinching, yet she had stayed silent for over 50 years. And now in her 90s, she was finally speaking out. "It took me a long time to understand that it was not about me," she explained. "At the time, I thought maybe I had done something wrong, but I realize now it was about power. It was about control. He had it, I did not. And that was how he chose to use it." Fans were stunned. Social media exploded with clips of her interview, many shocked by the emotional rawness in her voice. Longtime Eastwood fans were forced to reconsider their perception of him: stoic, enigmatic, and emotionally distant. Others defended him, suggesting he was simply private or deeply methodical. But Shirley's words shifted the conversation. Film critics revisited Two Mules for Sister Sara, noting the times when the lead's chemistry felt strangely distant. One columnist observed, "That strange lack of warmth between the leads. It was not acting. It was real." For Shirley, speaking out had nothing to do with revenge or bitterness. "I am 92 years old. I have said a lot in my life, but I had never said that, and it needed to be said," she told the interviewer. It was a quiet but powerful moment, one that reframed a decades-old film, redefined a legendary working relationship, and reminded everyone that silence does not always mean peace, even with her truth finally spoken. One question lingered. Was there ever a moment of kindness from Clint Eastwood? According to Shirley, there was no word, no glance, no acknowledgement, not even a simple thank you at the end of filming. She reflected calmly. What felt confusing then now seems perfectly clear. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a choice. He chose not to engage, and I chose not to shrink. For her, it was never about a personality clash. It was about power and the ways some actors wield silence as a weapon. I asked questions. I laughed. I challenged things, she recalled, and he hated that. Clint never responded publicly to her statements, no denial. No comment, only silence, which for some said it all. Today, Shirley carries no bitterness, only clarity. He is a legend, she acknowledged. But legends are not always kind, and that is something we have to say out loud. Film historians now revisit Two Mules for Sister Sara with a new perspective. The distant chemistry, the stiff body language, even the moments meant to convey warmth, it all makes sense now. The haunting part is that the truth had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. Shirley never sought revenge. She simply reclaimed the part of her story that had been buried for so long. I survived it, she said, and now it belongs to the past. But I will never forget how it felt. Her words reveal more than behind-the-scenes drama. They show the emotional cost of being dismissed, even by someone as revered as Clint Eastwood. And they prove that sometimes speaking the truth decades later is more powerful than anything said in the moment. The next time you watch Two Mules for Sister Sara, remember, what played out on screen was only a fraction of the story. Behind those quiet scenes was a deeper silence, one that lasted for years. One that Shirley MacLaine finally broke.